facing some pressure and goes up top. West Virginia touchdown. Greer to the end zone, touchdown. Greer bomb holes and dives. How about it?
As the competition grows, they've got the offense to do it.
Take a look at what West Virginia has been doing this year. They are really playing well, putting a lot of points on the board, and that should be expected for a Dana Holgorsen coach team. And we welcome the coach into the program. Coach, good afternoon. A big game this week, certainly heading to Texas. I know you know the terrain out there pretty well. How's it going so far?
It's going good. I appreciate you having me on, Paul. You know, every game in the Big 12 is tough, especially in road game situations. You know, we got a pretty hot TCU team that's going to be waiting for us there in Fort Worth.
Yeah, let's talk about them for a second because after last year, some people went to sleep on them, but they have had a fantastic season with that incredible win a couple of weeks ago against Oklahoma State. Not to give your game plan away, but what do you think of them?
Well, they've had two really good ones. You know, they won at Arkansas.
Oh yeah,
28-7. I mean, there's not too many teams that go into Arkansas that win like that. And then going to Oklahoma State, who at that point in time everybody was like, these guys may not lose this year. So, you know, two really good wins. You know, I mean, it's a Gary Patterson coached team. You know, they're solid on defense, and he's got an offense this year that's led by Kenny Hill that's doing some good things as well.
Well, let me ask you about that because certainly Coach Patterson's reputation is one of the best in the country, but for whatever reason, sometimes it's justified, maybe sometimes it's not. The Big 12 gets knocked pretty good about defense. You're an offensive guy. You play these defenses every week. Do you think the knock on the Big 12 defenses is justified?
Well, not when you look at the video and you watch TCU, holding Arkansas to 7 points and, you know, holding Oklahoma State team that's been averaging about 55 down to around 30. So it looks the same to me as it's always been. I mean, you don't do something at one place for 2 decades at a very high level and it not be good. So, you know, I don't know what the rest of the Big 12 is. We'll figure this out throughout the course of the year when it comes to defense. But right now, TCU is playing as good as anybody.
Let's talk a little bit about your team. Certainly, Will Greer has had an interesting odyssey from Florida to your place. But based on what I've seen so far, he looks to have made the adjustment quite well. Give us your view of the quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of why this game's got a lot of intrigue across the country is you got a couple of former SEC quarterbacks that played very early at their respective schools, and then they transferred into the Big 12, and they've both been playing at a pretty high level. So, you know, I'm excited about Will. He's only 4 games into this thing, but he's a very older, mature kid. I mean, I sometimes look at him and think he's around a 28, 30-year-old kid. He's married. He's got a child, and he comes in and he's extremely professional. He sits and watches more film than a lot of our coaches do, and really understands how to be a starting quarterback too. I mean, sometimes those married guys don't have a relationship with some of the other players, but you know, he did a good job in the locker room as when he had to sit a year, and now he's doing a great job in the locker room, getting everybody else to play well around him. That's one of the best traits that you can have as a starting quarterback.
Let me ask you about that because you hear that, and usually, maybe not always is the case, but if you have a quarterback, Peyton Manning perfected this, others have as well. If they watch film all day and all night, it normally puts them in a different league. What does that mean to your team that he is that laser-like focused in on what he's doing?
Yeah, he was taught well. He's the coach's kid. His dad was his head coach in high school out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So he was just kind of trained that way, and he's played a lot of football. He was an old senior in high school, and then he's had to sit a couple years. So his football knowledge is as good as I've seen, especially from a guy that's only started 10 games. But you can just tell that he understands not only football, but understands the importance of possessing that lead leadership trait at that position as well.
Coach, when you mentioned Kenny Hill, and he had a similar beginning. He came on the scene, so much was expected, and then he had a tough time. He looks different too. When you look across the field, or looking at tape, you'll see him Saturday. What do you see?
You know, it's eerily similar to what I just said about Will. Honestly, I mean, he had a fantastic high school career at South Lake Carroll in North Fort Worth. That's one of the best high schools in the country, especially from a football perspective. So did it right out of high school. You know, started early in his career. Didn't work out for whatever reasons, but is going into his second year at TCU. You can just tell he's more comfortable. He got a lot more snaps under his belt. Kind of understands what they're expecting him to do. They got great running backs, great receivers, and a big old line around him. That doesn't hurt as well.
You got a pretty good running back as well. Let's talk about Crawford up against a Gary Patterson defense. Some people think it's going to be one of the keys to this game.
Yeah, it probably will. You know, Justin Crawford's averaging more yards per game than TCU gives up on the ground to any of the backs that they've been going against. So I think they're holding teams down to about 94 yards a rush. Oklahoma State's got a good back as well. As you know, Arkansas has got some guys running around that can run the ball as well. So it's going to be a big challenge. I think everything starts up front. You know, or our O-line has to play well. Quarterback's got to make good checks. And then we got to put the ball in Justin's hands, and we've got to let him do his thing. He's had a whole bunch of 100-yard games around here in the short year and a half that he's been here. So his expectations are high, and looking forward to him going against that good front.
Coach, let me close getting a temperature report on the Big 12. Certainly you've been an assistant in that league. You're now a head coach. It's a league that sometimes people have looked past, but this year with Oklahoma's play and obviously TCU, State's not out of it, you've made quite a run as you did last year. Your assessment of the Big 12 as it compares to the other Power 5 conferences?
You know, it's always been a quarterback-driven league. If you look back at all the years that they've been successful, that they've had teams towards the top, you know, I think our expectations are high. The Big 12's expectations are high. You know, everybody wants to point towards the college football playoff, and that's y'all's job and the media's job in general to get to the point where you're in that discussion. And obviously we are right now, which is good, but it's always been a quarterback-driven league. And the way the quarterback play's been going, you know, obviously Mayfield at Oklahoma is playing well, and Rudolph at Oklahoma State looks great to me. And then this game here this Saturday with these two quarterbacks, everything's going to be centered around them. So, y'all's expectations might be a little different, but I like where the Big 12's at, and hopefully we can maintain playing at a high level.
Well, Coach, we have to fill up time. You actually have to work, so there is a big difference between what I do and what you do. But regardless of all that, it has been a pleasure visiting with you again. Best wishes this weekend, and we hope to see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I appreciate you.
You got it. Wow, what a great conversation. Dana Holgerson comes from quite a coaching tree, the original Hal Mumme tree, which led to Mike Leach. Spent a lot of time under a coach out in Lubbock, and always considered one of the great offensive minds. Coming off a huge year last year, always really a cool guy to talk to. Well, we've reached the point